Hello everyone and welcome to SplitSecond. This week we are joined by one of our patrons, Aajimu. He brought one of his favorite commanders, Aminatou. This week Baal brought his updated list for Jhoira Weatherlight Captain. Hélder brought his personal favorite Narset Superfriends list. Leite is trying Birgi with Rielle the Everwise, Joose Bax list. And Aajimu is on its Aminatou midrange manifest. Note that this game was recorded before the Hullbreacher ban. Baal won the spell table randomness and he mulliganed down to 6, finding an island and a command tower. Mox Ember is no ramp to Jhoira, but is still good after casting her. Gamble will mostly be used to find a mana crypt and fire that windfall early. Jessica's Will can dig for fuel and he bottomed Brain Freeze. Hélder mulliganed once and found a pretty strong hand, Arid Mesa and Cavern of Souls for lands, with a Jhoira the Lotus and mana crypt for ramp. Scroll Rack is a great tool to have alongside Narset, and Enlightened Tutor can get him his only enchantment to the top, Omniscience. Narset can be a key card versus Jhoira and Rielle. Leite kept his first hand with a mountain and a Wooded Foothills for lands, mana crypt for ramp and plenty of interaction like Dispel and Force of Will. Ponder can dig for outlets while Tolarian Winds is great alongside Rielle. Finally, Aajimu also find quite the ramped up hand, with a single Underground Sea for lands. Chrome Mox and Mana Crypt will provide 4 mana on turn 1, which is enough to cast or evoke Slither Muse, and refill from the dumped rocks. Brainstorm further helps his manifesting plan, and Glasspool Mimic can serve as a second land if he fails to draw more or to copy some key creature on the field. Lastly, Force of Will at hand can also help to police this blue heavy table. Ready for this match? Baal starts his turn with a top deck that changes his plans. He plays a command tower and casts a Gamble. He thought first about getting a mana crypt, but scrolling through the deck, he goes for a Jeweled Lotus instead. Aajimu rolls a die and, unfortunately, Baal discards the top decked Lotus Petal, preventing him from casting his Jhoira turn 1. Facing 3 blue decks, he dumps his Jeweled Lotus and Mox Ember to avoid being willed or taxed by any Remoras. Hélder goes to his turn, plays an Arid Mesa and also casts a Jeweled Lotus. He follows that with a Mana Crypt and then casts a Scroll Rack before finishing his turn. Leite plays his Wooded Foothills and cracks it for a Volcanic Island. He casts Ponder and the top 3 is no good, so he shuffles before drawing. He refrains from casting Mana Crypt and passes. Aajimu plays his Underground Sea and casts a Chrome Mox, imprinting Brainstorm. He then casts a Mana Crypt and probes everybody's hands. We anticipate a Will, but he actually evokes a Slither Muse. When it enters the battlefield, it is sacrificed, and it triggers again to draw cards equal to Leite's hand size, which is 7. He draws 4 and passes. We're going to turn 2, where everyone seems to be able to cast their commanders. Baal plays an island and does just that, casting Jhoira. Leite holds priority for a second, hinting at a Force of Will, but an incoming hexproof Narset worries him more, so he lets her resolve. Baal passes, and on his end step, Hélder cracks his Arid Mesa for a Hallowed Fountain. Hélder rolls for the crypt and wins it. He plays a Cavern of Souls, entering and naming Monk. All of a sudden, that foe from Leite won't matter at all. Hélder casts an Incounterable Narset, and with the last mana, he activates Scroll Rack, putting 3 cards on top. He casts a Lotus Petal and passes. Leite plays an island and casts his Mana Crypt, that he held back to show less mana and to prevent 3 potential damage to him. He casts Rielle and passes the turn. Aajimu takes 3 from the crypt, plays a Plains and passes fully untapped. In his end step, Baal fires a Mystical Tutor for a Force of Will. He draws it and straight away fires a Jessica's Will, choosing both modes and targeting Aajimu, who has 7 cards in hand. He exiles 3 cards that could maybe be the ones he would want the least. He plays an island and fires his Windfall. Aajimu alerts he actually has an answer to Narset in hand, so Leite fires his Force of Will, pitching a Dispel. Baal now realizes he should have cast Helm first to maybe draw a blue card for his foe, so he casts it, triggering Jhoira, hoping to eat some fuel. He sends Jhoira towards the black deck and passes, still wiping his tears. Hélder loses his crypt roll. He plays a Mikokoro and casts a Talisman of Creativity. He then casts Teferi, Time Reveler, as preemptive protection. However, Aajimu responds with his own Force of Will. So much will in this table. He pitches a Glasspool Mimic and loses 1. Hélder then goes to combat and sends Narset Baal's way. She triggers and he responds to it with an Enlightened Tutor. It is Hélder's last card in hand and everyone lets it resolve. He gets an Omniscience to the top, and now everyone hopes he doesn't get a counterspell to top that off. He reveals it as well as Mana Vault, Teferi Hero of Dominaria and an Obliterate. Baal takes 3 and Hélder casts his Teferi. The table discusses what could be worse, and Aajimu eventually hints that he can pressure it, despite of the Obliterate. It resolves, and then Hélder tries to cast Omniscience. Despite Hélder being hellbent, everything he could draw could be cast, so the table agrees that it must be countered, and Baal fires his Force of Will, pitching a Rhystic Study. Hélder then activates Mikokoro, trying to better ponder his options. Not finding great outs, he upticks Teferi and after that casts his uncounterable Obliterate. Aajimu floats mana off of his lands and rocks. Hélder then casts his Mana Vault and Aajimu responds by casting his Soul Breacher, which has waited steadily in his hand all this time. Hélder casts a Talisman of Conviction before passing to Leite. We're playing a new game from now on. Leite plays an island and passes. Aajimu plays an island and casts a Mystic Remora. He then sends Soul Breacher at Teferi and passes. Baal plays an island and passes as well. Hélder takes one from the vault, draws, plays a Sea of Clouds, and upticking Teferi is just giving a treasure to Aajimu, not even being able to survive one turn cycle, so he simply passes without activating it. Leite plays another island and passes. Aajimu pays for the fish and sends Soul Breacher at Teferi again, sinking another boat. Baal simply draws and passes. Hélder takes another one from the vault and passes as well. Leite plays a mountain and passes. Aajimu can't pay for the fish, so he lets it go. He attacks Leite as he has the most mana and passes. Baal does the draw go again and Hélder takes one from the vault again. He's on a clock, guys. Plays a Training Center and passes. On his end step, Leite casts a Dig Through Time, exiling 5 cards and setting himself a bit. He then gets to his turn and plays a Training Center and passes fully untapped. Aajimu finds and plays a Windswept Heath that he cracks for a Scrubland, so he can cast Dark Confidant. He sends Breacher at Leite again and passes. Baal also finds an Izet land. He plays a tapped Steam Vents and passes. Hélder is pinged again, plays a Sacred Foundry and also passes. You might be wondering why he went for Obliterate without the Omniscience. He wanted to delay everyone a bit as his deck is also slow, hoping to catch up down the line of a grindy long match. Leite plays and cracks a Polluted Delta for an island. He has some interaction, but nothing is going on, so he casts his Rielle, hoping to advance his game plan next turn. He passes, and on Aajimu's upkeep he reveals a Dovin's Veto for Dark Confidant. He plays a Swamp and casts a Mnemonic Betrayal, to which Baal responds by casting his Chain of Vapor on Soul Breacher, as he has a Windfall in his graveyard. Both spells resolve, and suddenly the table laughs and cries at the same time for how powerful that has become after Obliterate and how complicated it will be to resolve it via webcam, respectively. Everyone lays down his graveyard on the field, and Leite is happy to have delved most of his good stuff. Aajimu starts by casting both Jhoira the Lotus, from Baal and from Hélder. He then casts both of their Lotus Petals, and Hélder's Mana Crypt as well. With the Crypt he casts Baal's Helm of Awakening. He then cracks both Jhoira the Lotus and Baal's Lotus Petal to cast Aminatou. He then casts Baal's Mox Ember and cracks Hélder's Petal to cast Hélder's Talisman of Creativity. As it only costs 1, he gains this way a permanent source of mana. He then casts Baal's Jeska's Will with Mox Ember and the Talisman, targeting Leite as he has 6 cards in hand. Unfortunately, he gets 2 lands and a Gilded Drake, which isn't so good. He then downticks Aminatou targeting his island, and with that blue he's now able to cast his Soul Breacher from hand again. And he follows that with Baal's Windfall. In response to that, Hélder fires his Angel's Grace, and maybe, just maybe, we might have another Hellbent's turn. Everyone discards and Aajimu draws 6 and gains 18 treasures. Rielle's trigger is resolved after Windfall and Aajimu gets 6 more treasures for a total of 24. He then uses his last 3 red and 6 treasures to cast Hélder's Omniscience. He follows that with a free Demonic Tutor to search for a Bolas Citadel that he also casts freely from hand. He also casts a Mystic Forge from his hand, and he then casts a Mazemind Tome from the top, with the Citadel paying 2 life. He follows it with a Counterbalance from the top, paying 2 more life. He then activates Mystic Forge to exile the top card of his library. He follows it with an Anguished Unmaking from the top as well, targeting Rielle and paying a total of 6 life. He then activates Mazemind Tome to scry the top card to the bottom. He finds and casts a Mystical Tutor from the top to get a Vampiric Tutor to the top as well, which he also casts to then find an Aetherflux Reservoir. He casts it with the Citadel and then casts Hélder's Enlightened Tutor to find Senses Divining Top to the top. He is now able to continuously cast Sensei's Divining Top from the top of his library, paying 1 life with Bolas Citadel, or even with Mystic Forge, activating Sensei's Divining Top to draw a card and put it back again on top, gaining this way exponentially more life with each cast, from Aetherflux Reservoir. He then shows us he already has Temporal Mastery at the ready to get an extra turn and bypass the Angel's Grace effect. In his extra turn, he laser beams everyone to death with a Reservoir. GG. Thank you for joining us for today's match, everyone. After some crazy fast turns, the game went into a halt and finished with a crazy unexpected twist of events. We'd like to start the credits by thanking our current patrons, and especially Izanagi, TG Rap, Mike Purr, Aajimu, Uncrustable, Drunken House Cat, V, RJ and Heated Chill, our stack breakers. If you want to support us, you can do so by liking this video, subscribing or by becoming a patron yourself. If you want to go through other Commander adventures, click one of the videos on the right. If you want to talk with us about our games or other EDH related matters, join us on Discord. Join us again next week for a new set of Commanders and more decisive plays. See you all then.